Thank you so much, Jeff. I am beyond grateful to Jeff and to Tracy and to Paul for having me here and for allowing me to share a message that is very important to me. On April 22nd of 2007, I was excited. I was so excited. I had plans for that evening. I was going out with girlfriends. My two children, Cooper was 9 months old and Delaney was 2.5. I'd been spending a lot of time at home with the two of them, and while I'd been doing a little bit of work, my main job was as a mom, and that night was going to give me an opportunity to be something else. People were going to call me Danielle again, and that was exciting. I had one problem though. I had a feeling right here in the center of my belly, in my gut. Something was telling me that there was a problem. And a lot of us get those feelings. We get that issue, that gut feeling, that instinct that tells us there is something wrong. And sometimes we pay attention to it, and sometimes we ignore it. I had a problem because I wasn't comfortable calling my friends and saying, I can't go out tonight because I have a bad feeling about today. That feeling persisted throughout the day, and yet I went out. I had a beautiful evening. We went to dinner. We went and listened to a band. I was the designated driver. I dropped one girlfriend off at home. I dropped my second girlfriend off. But then I sat in her driveway because I knew between her house and my house, there were 20 minutes. How do I get home? Route A, Route B, Route C. I couldn't figure out which way to go because I still had that feeling. I made it all the way through the day, and yet that instinct was telling me something was amiss, but I couldn't sit in her driveway for the rest of the evening. I decided to go. I stopped at a stop sign on the way out of her subdivision, very careful, paying attention to all the drivers around me. I was going 55 miles per hour because that was the exact speed limit. Watched everybody. I started to go through my very green light. The problem was the driver to my right decided to go through her very red light. I can tell you everything about that moment and the next 10, which felt like hours. She hit me on the right side of the car, and my airbags didn't go off until the left front tire of my car hit the curb, and my car started to roll down an embankment. I rolled about 2 times, and I landed on the left side of the car. I can remember hanging from my seatbelt thinking, this is that bad feeling. This is what my instinct was telling me. I knew that today wasn't a good day, but I didn't trust myself to follow that instinct. I still to this day drive with my cell phone between my knees because I was able to pull my cell phone out and call my husband. I had called him to tell him I was on my way home, and now I needed to call and say, I didn't quite make it. I'm okay, but I've been in an accident. We can call it luck. We can call it a second chance. We can call it an opportunity to take a separate path. I like to call it all three because despite all of that, I walked away from that accident and my kids weren't in the car with me. That morning, and I say that morning because I didn't go to sleep, I was sitting in between those two small people and I made a few decisions. I decided never again was I going to have a job that didn't allow me to be a better citizen of the world. Never again did I want to do anything but work for myself. Never again, even though I'd made my kids a bit of a priority, never again was I going to do anything but make sure I was making them better citizens. So for the past 8 years, I have made myself take a journey towards making my children the best possible citizens and taking them on a path of gratitude. I know we do this on a regular basis. We want our kids to be grateful, but we have to make that effort. How do we do that? Well, for me, the very first thing that I realized is, and anyone who has kids probably already knows this, our kids don't do what we tell them to do. They do as we show them. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine last night. You realize this the very first time your child looks at you and does exactly what you do. They put their hands on their hips, they wave their finger in your face, and you recognize your facial expressions, your tone of voice, and your words. But more than that, you realize, as I do, that my kids say please and thank you because I do. My kids open doors for other people because I do. My kids write thank you notes because I do. My kids volunteer their time because I do. In my house, we have a bit of a family motto. It may sound a little bit silly, but when they were very little, I realized that I needed them to practice kindness to each other initially. So I started to say, Delaney, I want you to say, am I being kind before you take any action towards your brother? Cooper, I want you to say, am I being kind when you're talking about your little brother? This is really important when you're dealing not only with each other, but your parents and your coaches and your teachers and your friends. And this will be a gauge how you can measure how other people are treating you. I want you to know that I care about how you are being treated in the world. I need to ask you questions. Your heart matters. Your suggestions matter. Your ideas matter. We need to have conversations. I would love to tell you that every single day we end the day by saying, what are we grateful for? It's a conversation we need to have, but we can't necessarily do it every day, but we need to be talking about it. Your children's ideas and their heart matters. Ask them questions and make sure that they know you're listening to them. And then put gratitude into practice. Volunteer together as a family if you can. It's very easy for me to say, pay it forward, right? It's a phrase that we hear on a regular basis. We don't always have the money to be able to do it, but you certainly can do it with your time, and you can teach your children to do it in small ways. They can take money out of their piggy banks and put quarters into the gumball machines at the local grocery store, and then sit back and watch the joy that other children experience just by getting that as a surprise. For me, one of the big things is celebrating others. Since I developed a space in this online world on Twitter and Facebook, I started to ask other people what their good news is. And sometimes that good news is as simple as the sun shining for the first time in 6 days. Sometimes it's an anniversary or a birthday. And sometimes it's as amazing as finding out that their child who is autistic, who was told that they would never speak, said mama for the first time. That gives us perspective, and that perspective is important. When I am able to give my children that type of perspective, it helps them to appreciate what they have in the world, and that's information that I hope to be able to pass on to them. I would love to tell you that my children are perfect, but you know and I know that that's not true. Those two small people, they fight. They talk back, and I am 100% sure that there will be a day when they are teenagers that they're going to challenge me just like all of our children challenge us. But I know that they love each other fiercely, and they love me fiercely as I love them. 4 years ago when I was on book tour, I was asked in an interview, what do you want your children to say about you at the end of the day? And I said, end of the day, end of the day? And she said, I know, it's kind of a morbid question. And I said, you know what? At the end of the day, I want my children to say, she did both. She was as present of a mother as she could be. She was at our sporting events. She came to basketball and softball and baseball and soccer. She was there for prayer time. She was there for dinner. But she also showed us what it was like to never stop being who she wanted to be when she grew up. And for me, that is especially important when it comes to the idea that I have a daughter. I don't want her to think that when she has a family, she has to stop being who she wants to be when she grows up. My goal in laying a foundation of gratitude is that my children understand that in being grateful, kindness wins. You will never stop being grateful that you were kind, and that giving them that foundation allows them to trust who they are and love who they are, and someday they get to move forward and make some positive change in the world. I'm grateful to you guys for being here with me. Thank you for this time.